Genuinely, I loved you. Honestly, I've never felt like I loved
No, it's mad, but I don't know, as I say, you don't realise that at the time.
The big man with a big goal on the big occasion.
First of all, listen, thank you so much for doing this. If my 20-year-old self had told me that I was going to be interviewing you one day on something called the internet, I wouldn't have believed it. So thank you so much.
Nor would I. I don't think it was invented then, was it?
No, probably not. All good now, though? You're happy in life? And
yeah, no, all is good. Remarried again, and yeah, all is good. So working every day. So just back in the real world now.
All right, let's get started. I've been reading up about you a bit. You got into professional football quite late. What happened? How come you left it late?
Long story. Basically, I just played park football for local teams on a Saturday and Sunday. I used to play Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. Scored loads of goals and ended up getting a trial at Fareham Town, which was like my local non-league club. And then, I was there for a couple of years, then went to Waterlooville. And then Southampton gave me the chance to become a pro.
I mean, that's quite a jump, right? From like real non-league to Premier League Southampton. Must have been quite a shock to the system.
Yeah, it was all a bit of a blur, really. I mean, one minute, as you say, I was playing with my mates and not really taking things seriously. Going out, doing what you do at that sort of age. I was probably 18, 19 at the time. And no, it was like a whirlwind.
Did you realise you were good when you were playing park football? Did you think this is an injustice that I'm not playing?
Yes, I knew I had something. And I mean, I played for all the school Pompey Boys teams, and I was just gutted that I never got a chance with them, to be fair.
I've been looking. I was trying to find any footage of you at all playing for Southampton. I couldn't find anything, but I did find a couple of photos of you. Let's have a look. Who's that young man there?
Yeah, that was probably about 4 stone ago. Yeah.
So, I mean, in that Southampton team at the time, you had people like Letitia, I'm guessing, and who else would have been there at the time?
Yeah, there's some brilliant players there. Tim Flowers in goal, played for England. Jason Dodd, Francis Benali, Neil Ruddock at the back. Midfielders, you had Glenn Cockrell, Barry Horn, Letitia. Up front, Shearer, Paul Rideout, he was there. Ian Dowie joined along the way. So no, it was a good team.
Am I right in thinking that you're the only player that Matt Letitia was dropped for? Is that true?
Probably, yeah. It was quite funny actually. Obviously, absolute talent he had, but he didn't work hard in training, whatever. And I think the manager was just trying to get a few extra yards out of him. And I was scoring goals for the reserves, and worked my nuts off every game. So he put me in. The only fact I didn't stay there was I didn't score.
So you had 12 games for the Saints, no goals. What was it like when you're in that kind of run? You're obviously desperate for a first professional goal as well, right?
Yeah, really frustrating for me, that was. I had chances, and I think nerves sort of got the better of me. Well, when I was playing for the reserves there, as I say, I was banging in 1 and 2 goals every game.
So I guess it was Dennis Smith who was our manager at the time. What do you remember about the whole kind of signing and going to train with us for the first time?
Well, I remember because I had a couple of clubs come in for me, and Laurie McMenemy, who was the Southampton chairman at the time, said, "Look, we've got a couple of clubs come in for you. Might suit you better, whatever, get a first team game." So I ended up coming up to Oxford and having a chat, having a coffee with Dennis and a bit of food, and spoke to him, and he sort of convinced me that was the club to come to. So yeah, as soon as I spoke to him, my mind was made up, really. So yeah, rest is history.
We're a struggling team at the time.
It was, yeah. It was surprising for me because it was such a good team, and I remember coming in there and we held our own against most of the teams we played against. I think I got something like 8 goals in 15 games. And we only just narrowly went down. But I think if we'd have stayed in that division, we'd have been easy mid-table next year. With a couple of signings, we might have even challenged for the Premier.
Well, with I mean, I was looking at your record in that first season. As you said, you got 7 or 8 goals, and the team in the time that you were there won 7 of the 15 games, which is pretty damn impressive for a team that ended up going down. So it's clearly an upturn once you joined. Who do you remember playing with? Who do you remember from that squad?
Johnny Byrne. I mean, I always say it. He's the best forward I ever played with. He could hold the ball up, and I was in for running in behind. And he was obviously an experienced player, and he could still play and score goals. And I think, that was a good partnership. Then you had Chrissy Allen, Joey Beauchamp, Matt Elliott. I mean, it was a solid team, to be fair, and we played good football.
I must admit, right, I'm going to say this, and please don't take this the wrong way. I was a little bit underwhelmed when you signed, because I looked at your record. His guy hasn't scored before, and I just remember the first couple of games, like you're this big kind of unit, the ball's bouncing off you sometimes, and then one day I watched you, and it was I think it's Birmingham we played. I think we won 2-0. I've got the goals actually. And in the warm-up beforehand, you were just doing shooting practice, and the shots were flying everywhere. And I tell my brothers, the first time I'd seen you playing, I was like, oh my God, I'm not.
So what have we signed here?
What have we signed here? And then the game started, and you were just phenomenal, like literally phenomenal. Let's see. I've got some of the goals here. Let's show you. You're just absolutely phenomenal. Were you one of these players that like just turned it on when you crossed the white line and kind of struggled in training? What's the secret?
I used to train hard as well. So I knew that I didn't want to go back to what I was doing before. You know, I'd done literally every job on the building trade, roofing, window fitting, digging the roads, all sorts. So as soon as I got that chance, I knew that I had to stay there, you know. But obviously, when someone joins a new club, it takes a while to settle in. And always that first goal gives you that bit of confidence.
Your penalty technique, we've just seen one of your penalties there. Your penalty technique was just amazing. You just seemed to run up it.
Can you call it a technique? I said this before. I always used to look at the goalkeeper and aim between him and the post and just hit it as hard as I could.
You mentioned your understanding with Johnny Burns. Did you work on that in training, or was it just one of those instinctive things?
Not really. It was natural. I think some players you hit it off with, some you don't. You know, and the style of football we were playing, we played attacking football, which at the time benefited me. Obviously, we played a lot of long balls over the top, which I was unbelievably quite quick at the time. So no, it was a good style of play that suited me.
You were quick as well, right? You were proper quick. Don't wish to sound rude. You didn't look like an athlete. Right? You're quite kind of big in arms and elbows and stuff.
Yeah,
you're proper quick.
Yeah, but I always looked at it. If I knock the ball past someone, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be quicker than them, over sort of 10, 20 yards. And that's how I got a lot of goals and a lot of assists, by just sort of outpacing players, really.
I've got an example here, actually. This is Sunderland away. First one was a penalty, and as you say, you just twat it.
Yeah.
And then the second goal, I think it's Gary Bennett who just totally outpaced. He kind of gives up even chasing you. Can you see these, bud?
Yes, yeah.
Here it is. He just kind of seems to give up chasing you.
Yeah, strange that, looking back on that now.
That's a great finish, that. So you've gone from this guy who literally hasn't scored in, all of your professional career. Then you get one for Oxford, and then you're literally just banging them in. Like, I'm fascinated in the mindset of professional sports people, having never been one. What's the difference in your headspace between this guy who hasn't scored in 15 games or whatever it is, and then this guy is literally just smacking them in every week?
Every forward, I say this, it's just confidence. It's getting that first one and relaxing, because the longer it goes on, the harder you try. And it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you need a goal going off your knee or wherever. And then, it just breeds confidence. And then I expected to score every game. Every game I went out there, I just had a feeling I was going to score every single game, that's positive thinking, and it's confidence again.
You're on fire. You got 7 in 7, I think I counted it as. We ended up, unfortunately, that season we ended up going down on the last day. But I just remember feeling so optimistic about the next season, going into what's now League One, would have been Division 2, I guess, in those days. What's the feeling amongst the squad as you went into that new season?
Yeah, we were obviously expecting to go straight back up because we didn't think we deserved to go down with the team that we had. And I think Dennis...
We lost Joey, didn't we? We lost Joey that summer. He went to that ill-fated trip to West Ham.
Yes, that was all a bit of a strange thing. But no, I think we still had enough players of quality to be able to go straight back up. And I think we were on fire up until probably November, December. I'm sure we were probably top of the league then. And then...
we were, and you were absolutely banging them in. I've got to talk about the goal, one of the 2 goals actually that will live with me till the day I die. First one's obviously the Cardiff goal. Let's have a watch of it. What point are you thinking I'm going to score?
Were you there? Were you actually there?
No, I wasn't, sadly. No, I went to university this year, and I went to university in Hull. So I only went to a few games this season. I watched this on Inslee League Extra. And I literally couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was strange. It was one of those, I picked it up, just started running, then things opened up. And that was the thing. It took out about 3 players, I think. And then you got the goalie to beat.
Are you doing this in training? Like, in the training pitch, are you running between, like, Matt Elliott and Phil Gilchrist and whacking it in?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Nothing against them two, but I remember when I signed from Southampton, I felt a lot fitter than the players at Oxford, so for me it was just keeping that fitness up, doing that bit extra, just to give you that edge, because Southampton was a fantastic club for bringing on the younger players and more inexperienced players and getting them fit and ready to play in the Premier. And I definitely noticed a difference in the fitness when I joined. When
you score a goal like that, are you still thinking about it even to this day? Do you sometimes wake up and go, "Oh, remember that goal I scored at Cardiff?"
I don't. It seems like another world. It's funny. Wife always says this. It's like you end up getting married a couple of times. It's like you're in another life, and you probably have 3 or 4 different lifetimes in your own life. But very rarely think about it. I have odd moments, but it's generally when people like yourselves and odd people at work will talk about it, and it brings back some nice memories.
I'm going to make you watch it again. I want you to literally just talk me through it, if that's all right.
Yep.
Who's that? That's Chrissy Allen passing your ball.
Yes.
There. So go on, you got it. Jink.
Yeah, little dummy there, little nutmeg outside the foot on the floor under the goalie. Yeah. I mean, someone done a TikTok thing with the Maradona goal against England, and to be fair, there's not a lot between both the goals. If you look at his goal, it's obviously a fantastic goal. But as I say, if this was in the Premier League, they'd have been playing it over and over again.
You didn't look like the kind of player that could do that. Like when you think of players who score goals like that, you do think of these kind of little players. You think of your Messis, you think of your Maradonas.
Yep.
And you're doing it, and you're what, 6'4",
6'3", yeah,
6'3", yeah, 14, 15 stone.
Yep.
And doing it at great pace. It's just remarkable thing. Remarkable. My second favourite goal that you ever scored, might even be my favourite, is the one against Bradford, which again is just a phenomenal piece of skill. We're not going to talk about the moving ball from the free kick, but it's just the touch and the bam.
Yeah, I think the goalie wasn't expecting me to shoot. He was off his line a fair bit as well. And I think that a lot of my goals were scored by shooting when the keeper wasn't expecting it. Do you know what I mean? I used to look at it, any half a chance I had at seeing that goal and getting a shot in, I'd take it. And I watch the football now and I think, especially Man City, they pass. And how many chances they get to shoot, but they want to pass the ball in. And I think a lot of the excitement's gone out of the game now through players like myself doing unorthodox things, you know. And that's when I joined Southampton, they tried to sort of coach it out of me. But Ray Graydon, who was obviously at Oxford for a while, he was coached me down at Southampton for a long time. And he used to say in training, he said, you do some really stuff you shouldn't be doing, but it works, you know, rather than sort of trying to hold it up and pass it back and do the basic stuff. I used to try different stuff. And a lot of the time it used to come off because people weren't expecting it.
Did you love scoring goals?
Of course, yeah. I mean, every forward does, you know. It's no better feeling.
And so you've gone again from this guy who hasn't scored in 15 games for Southampton, then suddenly you're becoming like this absolute goal machine at Oxford, and you've got people chanting your name. What's that feel like when you suddenly, you know, what's the kind of feeling?
You can't describe it. I mean, I'm never going to have that feeling again, you know, which is, it's always hard to accept when you're a footballer and you're getting that adulation from the fans, and then all of a sudden that stops. And it is difficult, but I mean, at the time you don't appreciate it. I mean, I've watched games for Oxford, been in the stands, and Millwall with the fans, and you just don't appreciate how much it means to the people who's watching the game. I mean, we went and watched. Me and my wife went up and watched the Sheffield Wednesday game, and we went out into the town afterwards, and I had so many people coming up, buying me drinks and saying, "Oh, we remember this, we remember that," and it was just fantastic to be able to sort of share that with them, you know.
Yeah, well, you're a total Oxford United legend. I remember at the time people were comparing you to Stan Collymore quite a lot. I remember definitely a piece on
Yes.
ITV comparing you to Stan Collymore. And when you look at the goals and the style of play, I think that's kind of fair. Was there transfer interest from you? You know, were people like sniffing around you?
Yeah, I think at the time it was probably up to about November. I'd scored 19 goals. And I was top scorer in the country, and a few Premier clubs, Man City, were actually looking at me at the time. And then I had some sort of personal troubles. I say troubles. My kids were born twins, premature. And it was my first kids, and they were like £2.5 each, Jake and Ty. And this was on the 6th of January, and I think I was suspended for 3 games before that due to getting sent off against Cardiff. So I think I missed the games over Christmas, and then I had this personal incident to sort of deal with, you know, which completely took my focus off the football, and I think that sort of coincided with our dip in form for that next couple of months.
I remember hearing kind of vague stories about it at the time, but obviously in those days there wasn't the internet and there wasn't like the kind of communication, and so I think as well, you know, people didn't really know how to talk about these things either. Do you think if it happened now, you know, with the support that clubs give you, do you think, you know, do you think it would have been easier, or like,
I
do you
don't
think?
know. I mean, how do you deal with a player who's going through that? Do you know what I mean? I actually suffered from depression at that time, and I didn't realise. And I had done before that without realising. So yeah, it's it's things like that. I mean, Dennis Smith was brilliant. To be fair, he said if you're not up for playing, don't play. And I didn't play games. I missed a few games, and he said, "Well, go on the bench. And if you fancy coming on, we'll put you on if we're struggling or whatever." So that was how it sort of panned out. But I mean, I was driving literally. The boys were born in Basingstoke, and I lived in Portsmouth at the time, so I was travelling in the morning, Portsmouth to Basingstoke, at about 7 o'clock in the morning, staying there for a couple of hours, then driving up to Oxford, training, then going back to Basingstoke for a couple of hours, then going back to Portsmouth, literally having some food, sleeping, then back doing it. This went on for a couple of months, you know, and I think a lot of the fans didn't really see what was going on behind the scenes with me. And it was one of them periods you look back now and think, how did I ever do it?
I just remember there's one game I watched around that period. I think it's Chester, and you missed a penalty, and you just looked like a man who was, you know, clearly distracted by the stuff. And I remember hearing something on the terrace, you know, he's got these kind of personal issues at the time, but that was kind of all you heard. And obviously my thoughts were with you for going through such a difficult period. The kids are all right now, the boys?
Oh, they're brilliant. Yeah, they were 30 last week.
Oh my God, that makes me feel really...
Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, they both literally, the doctor said they got 70% chance of living. Oh, and then on top of that, they said there's 70% chance they could develop cerebral palsy or brain damage, whatever. One of Jake, he had a shunt fitted. Don't know if you know about it, but he had a bleed on the brain after about 2 weeks.
Oh God, no.
So he had to have a shunt fitted, and it was horrendous watching a tiny baby like that having to go through massive operations, having his head cut open and having tubes fitted in him and stuff down his throat. So no, it was a horrible time. But I just had to get through it.
Yeah, I guess that's the hard thing. I mean, the hardest thing is without kind of the support that maybe somebody would get at a club now, you know, just to help you with that mental side. You know, you do like to think the players are given much more support and there's much more understanding about these things, I guess.
That's right. I mean, I just felt like I was on my own, dealing with it on my own with my wife at the time. Didn't really know what was happening, what the outcome was going to be. But it was a proper stressful time. And obviously being a professional footballer is a stressful job as well. So, as I say, I think that was the start of my sort of decline, if you like, at the club. I mean, I never sort of recreated that form that I had before they were born.
Not quite. I mean, there's definitely a drop off, and you know, totally understandable drop off. But then I do think halfway through the following season, where we did get promoted, you were back. Like you were definitely back. You ended up with 24, 25 goals that season. A lot of them off the bench, which is like I think as a record, you've scored the most goals as a substitute for Oxford United.
Really?
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? I've got one of them here. The only hat trick ever for Oxford United as a substitute.
Burnley,
yeah. I was at this one actually. And obviously, like, thrilled that you're banging him in. Joey Beauchamp came back as well. He recently rejoined. So you know, my two favourite players banging in goals was quite a joy.
Martin Aldridge there as well.
Yeah, only ever hat trick. So I think you're pretty much back to your best by this point. To be fair to you, the second one where you just absolutely leather it in. That's pure Moody. When I think of what Paul Moody is as a footballer, was as a footballer, I mean that's the kind of goal that you hit.
As I say, I was getting to age as well where I was starting to lose a bit of pace, or I felt as though I was. But I think it was accumulation of the stresses that I was going through off the field. I didn't feel myself. I just didn't feel myself out there playing. You know, I was just like a shell. I was just go out there, and I knew that I still had to do my best. That's the thing. The fans watch the game and they think, oh, he's having a crap game or don't look interested. Half the time I wasn't. But I had a good reason not to be.
I never felt that about you. There's obviously that game against Chester that I watched, and you're clearly a man who's so distracted by other things, and it was weird seeing you, just a few months before, whacking in these goals from everywhere, and then I just remember a penalty you took that's so timid. It's like a timid penalty. It's the only one thing I ever saw
Yeah,
you.
I remember it. The ball come back out to me. I headed it over the bar, I think, didn't I? No, it was just one of them. If it'd gone in, then obviously it'd been totally different. But yeah, it was just one of those things. It was another.
I never got the impression with you though that you were hiding. You never gave me you never made me feel like, oh, he's not trying at all. You have good games and bad games, but
that's the thing. You can't, and that's what I was talking to someone the other day about. Playing in front of the fans, and some of the players now are like Man United, and over the past sort of year or two, watch some of their players on obviously big money, and they don't look as though they're trying. And I'm sure they didn't have the personal problems that I was having at the time. And that's the thing. It was about my own pride, putting in a shift and putting in that effort in every single game. Odd games you'd have where you just didn't feel what's the word? Wouldn't say up for it because you're always up for a game, but some games you just felt a little bit lethargic, whether you trained too much or had a couple of games in the week or whatever. But no, I always try to give 100%.
Do you think Dennis Smith lost a little bit of faith in you as a footballer during that period? Because he started bringing
definitely. He understood what was going on. I've spoke to him since then about it, and I mean, what can you do? As a manager, you've got to put your strongest team out, the players that are mentally right to play the games, and I wasn't at the time, so I understood that and still trained hard every day. As you said earlier, I was sub for a lot of games, which it's horrible being a sub because sometimes you get comfy on the bench and you think, I don't want to come on, freezing cold, your feet are freezing. And then all of a sudden the manager says, warm up, you're going on, and you think, oh. But you've obviously still got to perform.
So that following season was like the previous season in reverse. So we had quite a disappointing run up to Christmas. And then after Christmas, it just seemed to click. You were obviously coming back into form. There was Russian Aldridge playing as well, giving you kind of competition, or those two would just like run around a lot quite often in the first half, and you'd come on and whack in goals in the second half. What was the turning point for that season? What do you remember of it? Suddenly it all just seemed to click into place.
I can't recall too much about that, to be fair, but I do remember going away. We went to Cyprus for about 4 days, I think. And sometimes the players need a little break just to get away, bit of sun on your back. And then I think we come back and we won, I don't know, 10 out of 12 games, which was, as promotion forward, it's hitting that run of form at the time we did, which won it for us. Well, it got us promoted, put it that way.
I think the greatest game of football I ever saw was away at Crewe. You scored that blinder. And then Joey Beauchamp got one. So we're 2-0 up and cruising. Then I think Stuart Massey got sent off. Then they scored, Crewe, and we were literally clinging on.
Yeah, I remember it well. My father-in-law at the time, he lived up in Liverpool. I got him a ticket for the game, and I remember meeting him up there, and it was a massive game for us. It was one of those we had to win. And I think that was before. That was one game before the end of the season, wasn't it?
Penultimate game here.
Yeah. And it was we had to win it. And I'll say Crewe were a good team at that time. I think they were up there or thereabouts. And I think that goal as well. That was in the top 5, I think.
That's beauty. I'm gonna download it. I'm gonna edit it onto this bit. And then obviously the last game of the season was Peterborough, which we obviously famously had to win to go up automatically. Let's have a look. What do you remember of that day?
Not a lot, really. Only looking back at the videos. But I remember we had a few chances first half. We were on top. I don't think they had anything to play for. I remember coming in at half time and Dennis Smith said to us, "You will get chances in the second half." Going down the slope, the London Road end, and it was always, as a player attacking that end, it was like, I don't know, every time you attacked, you felt like you were going to score, you know. So yeah, own goal, first one, which is what we needed, that little bit of luck. And once we got that first one,
look at that touch from the big man there.
Yeah, I know. I do look back at that. And, yeah, Stuart Massey hooks it back in. Yeah, great feeling.
You were doing that funny cartwheel thing at the time, but then this time you just did a huge.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a couple of mates who were standing up in that corner, and I just sort of run over to them. A couple of mates from Pompey come up to watch, and yeah, it was just brilliant day.
What do you remember from afterwards?
Not a lot, really. I was one of these. I lived down in Portsmouth at the time. I used to stay up for games. If I had a game on a Saturday, I'd stay in the hotel, or I rented a place for a while up in Littlemore. And yeah, I always used to make sure I was ready for the game. But no, after the game, I remember going back home, driving back home. I think I probably had one drink in the bar afterwards. Went back home and got Chinese with the missus, I think, and that was it.
So you weren't a party animal? You weren't going out clubbing with the lads? Or
don't get me wrong, I did go out, but generally I'd go out in Portsmouth because it was a lot easier for me. Obviously, if I went out in Oxford, I had to stay up there for the night. And I had my family with me at the time, so basically I used to keep myself to myself. A lot of occasions, the lads would be going out for drinks and that, and I used to decline. There's a funny story. I said the other week, I done a chat with someone. I don't know what stage of the season it was, but the lads all were going out for a drink. And I said, no, not for me. So I ended up going home. I had a phone call about 7 o'clock in the evening. It was Oxford Police. And they said, Paul Moody, yeah, you've just been identified as knocking someone out in so-and-so pub. And I said, well, that's funny. I'm in Portsmouth, so how could I? Anyway, it was Matt Elliott. Because we both had the same skinhead at the time. And I don't know whether it was a fan or someone winding him up or something, but he's whacked someone, and they've obviously reported him and said it was me. So yeah, that was a bit of a funny one.
Tell us about that squad. Who were the fun characters in that team?
Most of them were, to be fair. There's all different kind of characters. Phil Whitehead liked to drink. Yeah, he was always joking around. Ford, he was brilliant. He was a little bit busy at times, hence the nickname. We used to call him Busy. But players like that are brilliant to have around the club, you know. David Rush, another live wire, liked to drink. Matt Elliott, I think most of the team liked to drink at the time, to be fair. Then you had David Smith, Phil Gilchrist. They were steady Eddies, family men. They'd have a drink, but not. They were like me. They'd go back home to their missus, whatever. Who else was there? Chris Allen, yeah, local lad off. He was quite quiet, but again, a lovely bloke. Joey. I mean, I used to stay with Joey a few times on a Friday night before a game, and literally I'd go into his house. He wouldn't say a word. I'd struggle to get a word out of him. I'd sit there and try and have a conversation with his missus, and it was like, okay, I'm going to bed. You know what I mean? I just used to crash out, go to bed, have a bit of breakfast there in the morning, and then go to the game. But he obviously had his demons, Joey, and I could see that looking back at him now. He was very introvert as a person. Yeah, it's sad what happened to him in the end.
Really, really sad. I did an interview with him like this for the club during lockdown, and I mean that's just a couple of years before he passed. And when I watch it back now, he was, there was a guy there, really lovely guy, but obviously had real demons, as you say. Really, really, really sad.
Yeah.
There's a famous, fairly, I'm sure I heard stories about, for a famous end of season tour at the end of that season, or not tour, like holiday.
Magaluf.
Yeah.
Magaluf, yeah. Yeah, I remember it quite well, actually. I was sharing a room with Chris Allen at the time. So, no, what can I say? It was a Mickey Lewis as well. Bless him. Another lovely, lovely bloke, who sadly we lost last year, I think it was. But I remember, I think there's so much pressure release after the season we had, and getting promoted. It was just like a blowout. And I say a few of the lads like to have a drink, but I think Mickey Lewis went on a bender for 3 days. Literally, he'd come back to the hotel, I don't know, 5 in the morning, get a bit of breakfast, and then start drinking again. Didn't change his clothes or anything. But unbelievable. As I say, there was a load of characters in that club.
I think I was watching again one of these podcasts that people did over lockdown. I think Stuart Massey said that with you, he never felt that you loved football. Is that a fair comment?
100%. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing and scoring goals. But I mean, I've got mates now who I play with non-league, and they still love the game. They try to be coaches and managers and whatever after they'd stopped playing. But for me, it was a job. It was a job that I enjoyed doing, to be fair, don't get me wrong, but I was never in love with the game, no.
I guess
You
people
find that hard to believe, I suppose, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I love the game, but I'm crap at it.
At least you're honest.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've always dreamed of, what would it be like to play in front of a crowd and to score a goal and to have a shot like you did and be able to whack a penalty in like you did. Love that, but yeah.
I know, as I say, at the time, you don't really appreciate all these good memories because they're soon over. And I look at some of these players that, I mean, I played until physically I could play no longer, because of the financial side of it, I mean, I should be in a more comfortable position now, but I've had 2 divorces, which hasn't helped things. Hence why I'm still working. But the money these players earn now, looking back, if I was earning like 100 grand a week, I'd have probably played for 5 years and said, yeah, I've had enough now. I've got enough money to live on for the rest of my life. Comfortable family. Obviously, it wasn't like that back in the time.
More expensive divorces now, though, as well. A divorce is going to cost you
probably, yeah. I'd have ended up giving more away. So, yeah.
So let's talk about the next season. Not a great season for you. You got 5-6 goals, I think. We're back in the Championship. I mean, I thought, especially given you torn it up in the Championship, literally 2 years before, I thought you were going to absolutely smash them in. Nigel Jemson comes in. Thoughts about Nigel? I've heard you guys.
I knew you were going to say that. It always comes up. You want me to say something controversial, don't you? No, he was a twat. I didn't like him. We didn't get on. At the end of the day, he was arrogant, not a team player. I don't think a lot of the other players or supporters liked him. And it's funny because, as I say, watched the Sheffield Wednesday game a few weeks back. Went out for a drink in the evening and in the Oxford Centre, and a few Sheffield Wednesday fans were in there. Lovely lads. Ended up having a chat with them, and I asked them their thoughts, and they said exactly the same as I did. You know, he just played for himself and didn't care about anyone else. A funny thing, Dennis Smith told me a couple of months ago, we'd done a charity thing for MND. I hadn't seen Dennis for years, and he mentioned Nigel Jemson. And he said when he spoke to Brian Clough about sort of taking him on, signing him, Brian Clough turned around and said to him, Dennis, you take him. He said there's only enough room for one big head at this club. And yeah, so that sort of gives you an insight to what he's like. I could carry on, but...
Yeah, I thought, when we signed him, I thought he'd obviously been signed to kind of take on that Johnny Byrne type role, in terms of the way they play, similar touch, kind of good at bringing other people into the game. I thought you two would really, really click. I just thought it was going to be like a magic partnership, but yeah, it just didn't happen.
You know what? I don't remember one game from that championship season. Don't remember one game of it. Don't remember any of the goals.
I got one for you. I got one. Well, I've actually dug out two. You scored against Southampton. I thought you'd probably want to see it.
Yes, I do remember that actually.
Because I was desperate for you to come in and start scoring goals. And you came on. There's a couple of games. You scored against Sheffield Wednesday as well as a sub away at Hillsborough.
Yep.
I just kept thinking, right, he's in. He's back. Moody's going to be back. I was desperate for you to do well. I loved you, Paul. I loved you, man.
As I say, since my boys were born, I think my head wasn't in the right space.
Yeah.
Although I knew I had to keep on playing, as I say, to earn the money. And I knew I could still do a job. And I think when I signed for Fulham, it was a new challenge for me, which at the time I think I needed probably.
It broke my heart when you left, but obviously to then see you go off and score lots of goals again, and obviously I was just happy for you, really. Who was it who signed? Was it Keegan? Did Keegan sign?
No, it was Mickey Adams, who was he was a player at Southampton when I was there, and Ian Brownfoot was like the director of football there.
I mean, obviously he's a man who's gone down in folklore. Kevin, what's he like to play with? I remember a lot of people saying at the time he's just like the best motivator there was.
Motivation was his main asset, to be fair. Man management he was very good at. And I always say that man management is probably 90% of being a good manager. Also getting your team organised. A lot of the training sessions, he put some good sessions on for the forwards. But majority of the time, you have Ray Wilkins there with him. We just used to do five-a-sides, which they were okay, but there was no sort of structure to it, no team shape or no style of play or anything. It was just like go out and attack. We'll score more than you will.
Then you go to Millwall, and again you keep banging the goals in. I'm not going to talk to you. I don't care about your Millwall time. Then you come back to Oxford. Was it Mark Wright who signed you?
Yes.
What was he like? His short-lived career at Oxford.
Yeah, nice enough bloke, but as a manager, not for me. As I say, I've been used to being at clubs where things were done professionally. I remember the first training session. We had a five-a-side, and he used to join in. He rugby tackled one of the players, and I thought, "What are you doing? Do you know what I mean? You played for England, Liverpool. You should have a bit more about you." The whole setup there was, it felt very negative. The vibes around the place were not good. The stadium, the new chairman, as I say, I hated every moment when I come back.
Yeah, it's a real dark time for the club, and we just had two of the worst seasons in a row ever. Obviously, then got relegated down to the bottom division. And Mark Wright came in. There was kind of real sense of optimism. He'd done really well at Chester, I think, previously. And then I don't know if it was just the job was too much for him or just the club was such a mess. But his record with us was really terrible. And then stories coming out about, various things he was up to and, things going on behind the scenes and so on. Just a dark time at the club.
Well, I've said, sorry, before I forget, I've said to people about this before. there were some really good young players there at the time. Dean Whitehead, Sam Ricketts, Powley was still there.
Chris Hackett.
That's to mention a few. Chris Hackett, yeah. There was a team that with the right training, the right sort of structure behind the team, they could have been a really good team.
It just wasn't to be. Then Mark Wright goes, and then Ian Atkins comes in. Now I'm going to have to say, the results under him were all right. I hated his football. I really hated watching his football.
Well, his football sort of portrayed his personality. He was a very dour person. Again, I've spoke to him since I've left there, but we used to train for like 3 hours doing a 5-a-side. 3 hours. That's not constructive to anybody. You'd switch off after about half an hour, and players would just go through the motions. And again, there was he used to do a lot of work on the defenders and the defensive side of things. But again, for me, it was like, no.
There's a story going around that Bobby Ford, who came back to the club for a second time, you remember Bobby Ford?
Yeah, brilliant player.
Beautiful footballer. He hated playing under Atkins and the style of football so much that he gave up football for good.
Really, yeah. Well, that's sort of similar to me. I remember going there, training, starting off a pre-season, and I must have been, I don't know, 33 at the time. And being a big lad as well, you need to sort of know how much training to give to older players. We ended up going for a run, doing these hill runs in the afternoon. And I said to him, look, I'm struggling here. You're killing me, basically. And his sort of attitude was, if you can't keep up, then that's no good for me. After sort of saying to me he's going to look after me, then he sort of went back on his word. I don't know whether I got the impression he felt threatened that I was after his job, which I wasn't at the time. So no, it was a bit of a sad sort of end to my career at Oxford. I mean, I could feel in the games the fans were sort of getting on my back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crap ground with a crap team, crap manager.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
The whole club just felt like, it was dying on its feet then. I mean, I'm not saying I stopped going around then, but I went to far fewer games. It just wasn't any fun, really. I remember your hat-trick. You got a hat-trick at Halifax, or against Halifax, I remember.
Don't remember any of it, to be fair.
They were crap. And
dear.
It wasn't like your Cardiff one. How do you reflect generally on your time at Oxford? Forget that second. Let's pretend the second period never happened.
Yeah, the first few years I had there, loved every minute of it. It was my chance to break in there, getting a game every week, albeit being on the bench a few times for different reasons. But no, I loved it. Lovely people there. The Manor Ground was just one of those grounds that you turned up there and you wanted to play there.
You mentioned you came up to the club a few weeks ago. Do you still look out for our scores at all?
Oh, always look at my old teams, especially Oxford, Millwall, Fulham, Southampton, Pompey, because I'm from there. But now I look back and think I had a good time. And as you say, people like yourself would give their left arm to do what I've done, So I do appreciate it, but at the same time, you do forget it.
How would you like Oxford fans to remember you?
I think they'll remember me for what I was, do you know what I mean? 100%, and scored a few goals for them, and love the club. And that's what fans want. They want someone who actually enjoys playing for the club, and does a job for them,
Hey, you definitely did that. Thank you ever so much, Paul.
No worries. Been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for the memories as well. And I shall honestly, the goals at Cardiff, the goal at Bradford, can remember them for ever and ever and ever and ever.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Paul Moody, the man with the golden boot.